You guys are stuck with me for the beginning of the meeting today. Our president, Matt Russell, had an emergency. His dog went missing up in Black Forest. So I got a call from him about 6:15. He said, I found the dog, I'm on my way. So he's going to be here a little bit late.
Can we wait?
Yeah. Anyway, be harsh, man, I'm telling you. Yeah, that's gratitude for you. So, anyways, I'm Jim Urim. I'm the vice president of CSAS. And as I said, Matt Russell's our president. He'll be here very shortly. Our secretary, Fred, is not here today. He had a personal thing going on, so he was unable to make it. Our treasurer, Jill Furman, is also not here, but her husband, Jason, will be presenting her treasurer's report for us this evening. And then finally, our member at large, Dave Warner in the back, and our director of outreach, he's here. And then there's a bunch of other people. So anyway, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to actually save the president's comments till the president gets here. But what I'd like to do before we get started and start with our guest speaker for tonight is I'd like to ask if there are any visitors or new members that this is your first meeting. Can you stand up real quick? Just tell us about yourself and how you found out about us. And
I found out about it through my grandson.
he looks familiar. He's been here before.
So I'm happy to be here. First visit.
And now, have you been into astronomy for a long time, or?
I've got an interest in it for a long time, but it has exceeded my activity by leaps and bounds.
He'll be a great mentor for you. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And then in the back?
I'm Stu Ferguson, Steve Peterson, and Michelle Wheatley, representing Forest and Fossil Beds National Monument. We hope to twist your arms a little bit.
Just so you know, they'll be doing a short presentation for us probably right after the break. So welcome, you guys. Thank you for coming down. And then in the back?
Hi. My name is Brett May, and this is Rachel Manley. We're here she's going to college, she's in for class, so we're doing that. And I'm the one that actually told her to take astronomy class because it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Which school and who's your instructor?
College.
Okay. Well, welcome, you guys. And also, for our guests and new members, we have some of these cards, and Fred would not forgive me if I didn't pass these out to you guys. So I'll come around and drop one of these off. It's just basically some info. We're not going to hassle you, but that way we could just do a follow-up email and see how things went, and if you'd be interested in coming back to future meetings. Or thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. So without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker. As you know, as you may not know, at the meeting last week, Matt had talked about the possibility of the club obtaining a rather unique telescope. It's a great opportunity that we're exploring. Matt is going to discuss that a little bit more, but the Air Force Academy actually is the one offering the telescope. So our guest speaker tonight is the director of the United States Air Force Academy Observatory, professor, retired Air Force, Dr. Devin Delrose.
Too many titles. Just Devin. Works fine. So this is going to be a presentation about the Air Force Academy Observatory, which has been around since the late 70s or thereabouts. And so this is kind of past, present, and future. And Dave Strong is out in the audience. I'll call him out right now. So he works with me in the department. He worked with me when he was on active duty and now retired as a contractor working with the Falcon Telescope Network. So there will be a lot of comments on that. And I'll be, he'll be fact checking me as time goes on tonight. That's what he's here for. So this is going to be all pictures. right? Pictures are good. Pictures are good, and a few words scattered in there just to give the picture some context. So before we had an observatory, and this is a picture of our current observatory, I dug out some really old photos at the observatory. Dave, I don't even know if you've seen these. So let's go to the next one. So this is one of the first pictures that I know of the Air Force Academy involved in astronomy. This is pre-observatory. I don't know any of the specs on this telescope or where it is now. Can anybody tell? So this is like late 50s, right? They moved into the academy from Denver in 1958, right? August of 58, I want to say. And he's like 5, right? And so this has got to be circa late 50s, early 60s. There's no information on the back of the photo, unfortunately. Does anybody know what they're standing in? Where are they? They're not in an observatory. Anybody recognize the background? I'll say I'm impressed if you do, right?
Looks like dump road,
Right. Jim, yeah, you ought to know this.
Is that
Harmon
Hall? I don't know. On the roof.
So this, I believe, is in front of the planetarium.
Okay.
Right? Big doors and everything. In fact, go to the next one.
Can we dim the lights?
Sure.
Yeah, right up there.
This guy?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Okay, we now pass dimming to.
Yeah, to falling asleep, you know, right? But take a look. This is March 1959. So that's just a couple of months before the first class graduated in the Air Force Academy. And look where we are. Someone said Harmon Hall. Well, there it is. And there's the planetarium. And so it's just amazing it made the cover. I have this issue. Someone passed it along to me. So when the planetarium reopens, my plan is to give them this issue, have them frame it, and put it in the front foyer. So that would be an awesome thing. And if you go to the next one, it's just a close-up of everything. And you can see the place is like barely open, right? In fact, I don't know when this picture was taken. Maybe it was taken before they even moved in, right? But definitely very, very early days of the academy. There's Mitchell Hall.
Chapel's not there.
No.
There's a lot of construction activity.
Yeah, a lot of construction activity, right? And soon to be again, if any of you have heard about that $32 million visitor center that they're going to put, straddling I-25. So that'll be interesting when that starts. I think the construction for that starts next year. So next one, right? So here's some more photos I dug out. This is our 61 centimeter telescope, but that's not the Air Force Academy. To the best of my knowledge, this is it being extracted by crane out of its first home, right? Up in the New England area, right? Because we've never had shutter doors that open sideways like this. So I think that's the telescope being taken out of its first home after it was built and used there. And next one, just another shot of it being loaded onto a crane where it went off into storage and probably stayed for a few years. And then the Air Force Academy picked it up in the late 70s. So next one, this is now the Air Force Academy, and this is the old observatory before they built the annex for our academic building, the CTEF building. So main dome for the 61 centimeter, and then small dome for the 41 centimeter. Next one, another picture of that with the main dome open. And next one, so this is inside. This is Lieutenant Colonel Ray Bloomer, who was our first observatory director. And so here he is with the 61 centimeter inside the old observatory with lots of piggyback instruments on the side. I don't even think a lot of those things, the finder scope exists here, but everything else, I don't even think any of that still exists. So going way back. Next one, and you can see this is before DFM Engineering got involved, I'm pretty sure, our current telescope contractor, because this is not their hand paddle, and it's hooked up to the side of the mount, unlike it is today. So really kind of a vintage look at our old telescope. This is the original instrument fixture on the back. that just had one straight through, and we've modified that since then. So next one, here's our current home, and you see the bigger picture of what we saw earlier. This is the old dome, which is pointed north, which is not the best direction to point the dome, right? I bet any of you who have domes probably pointed west, right, into the prevailing winds, so that you get the strong winds, and then that weather seals the dome opening against the dome, and you don't get all the dust and dirt inside. So the reason that it was aimed north is that that's where the power outlet was, right? That you had to plug into, and you climbed up on the ladder and opened up the hydraulics, and that was why they aimed it north. And I'm like, that's what I call engineering, right? Not a really good thing. But we fixed that with the new dome. In fact, I've got some pictures here in a moment of the process of putting in the new dome 3 years ago. That was quite an adventure. So I've got some photos of that. Next one. So here's the instruments we've got. So the 41 centimeter telescope, which was installed in late 2010. It goes back to 1989, but it was refurbished and put in. It's about an F8 instrument. And so cadets do a lot of work on that. An Apogee camera at the back. And that camera is a back illuminated CCD. And one of the projects we're working on right now with the cadets, I don't have pictures of this, unfortunately, but something that we discovered is that there's this interference pattern, this wavy interference pattern of maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100 counts is all. But someone told us, and we have since verified, that is an interference pattern from high pressure sodium lights in downtown Colorado Springs. And so if you're looking for something like an exoplanet transit, the magnitude, that count difference equates to a magnitude difference that would totally swamp some exoplanet transit events. So that's something right now that we're trying to characterize and remove, just like you would calibrate an image with flats and darks and biases. This is like a second order calibration process that we're trying to figure out how to do. So the cadets have a lot of fun working with this telescope. Go to the next one, and then this is our main telescope up in the main dome. And that's that same single instrument cluster in the back. But since then, go to the next one, we put a 3-port cluster on the back. And as I've told some of you, you might recognize this. This is from Van Slyke Instruments, Paul Van Slyke at the Black Forest Observatory. In fact, these were the last 3 of his toad loaders, as they're called, that he sold before the Black Forest fire claimed his shop. So that was a very sad event for sure. But this is something in terms, and there's a flip mirror inside that can go back and forth between the 2 side ports, or you can take this thing out and then just go straight through, like for an eyepiece or some other instrument. And this instrument cluster will certainly be staying with the telescope when we donate it. Go to the next one. And so we are now in the market for a new 1-meter telescope and working with the folks in Jim's office to make this happen. So here's one example of the kind of telescope that we might acquire. And this one is in Taiwan at their national university, made by a company named Lunt Engineering. And the next one, this is DFM's. And in fact, DFM, it's interesting, it's Dr. Frank Melsheimer, right? So he used his own initials on the company. Well, why not, right? It's his company. And so this is one of their 1-meter designs. So this kind of design or a similar design is what we're looking at. And we're hoping to have it on contract by August of this year and then delivered in about a year or a little bit more after that. And so when we have our first light ceremony for this bad boy, I'm hoping to have as many of you out there in attendance as possible. So that'll be an awesome thing. And an awesome thing to do research collaborations on. One of the great features of this telescope that we're going to get, it will be remotely operable from anywhere in the world. So that'll be a very nice feature that will lend itself to research collaborations, both military and civilian, national and international. So that's really what we're looking forward to. All right, next one. So speaking of telescopes, other than our 2 fixed ones, we have something called the Falcon Telescope Network, which now is what, 5 years old? Something like 4 or 5 years since it started?
I think around 6 when they started putting.
All right, yep. And so here are all the locations. So many here in the continental United States, 1 in Chile, 2 in Australia, 1 at Penn State, and then others going in Germany, South Africa or Hawaii. One of those 2, right? But not both,
right,
I think is the idea. And I don't know which one is more likely. It probably depends on State Department interactions and things like that.
And agreements with the university.
Right, right. And so we've got 4 in Colorado at the moment. Like I say, 1 in Pennsylvania, 1 in Chile, and 2 in Australia for a total of 8. And then 4 are still under construction. So what happens with this Falcon Telescope Network is that we will provide, so the universities build the dome, don't they? They build the building.
They build the facility.
They build the facility. We supply all of these things, well, not that, but the telescope, the mount, filter wheel, camera, and cloud sensors and all the hardware and software to make it go. And then the folks on site at a university generally will serve as our on-site liaisons to maintain the facility. And in exchange, they can use the telescope, share the data with us, do public outreach with their telescopes. So that's kind of the handshaking agreement that we have with these universities. And then here is the parameters of the telescope and the camera and the filter wheel and everything that we have that goes with all of these Falcon telescopes. So this new 1 meter will be a node on this network and commandable by all of our research partners across the world. So that'll be a really great thing for us. Next, and projected operating capability fall of 2019. Is that still kind of a good date?
Yes, we've gotten 2 that are pretty much fully automated. They've had some test runs, dropped in the task list in the directory, and then they've opened up, taken the collections down.
Now, is this the ones in Colorado or elsewhere?
Actually, I'm not sure.
Okay, but Greeley and La Junta sound like the ones that we'd be talking about, but I don't know. Maybe it's some of the others.
I think La Junta and I think that the one in Pennsylvania may be the furthest along.
Okay, toward this total automation.
Yes.
Yep. All right, so next one. So again, here's pictures from the different sites from Colorado. I said Greeley, but it's Sterling. And then Chile and Australia, and then the one at Penn State. So to give you an idea, so smallish facilities, but and clamshell domes, and there's been some growing pains, I think, with them in terms of how they operate. But that's the hardware that was chosen. So next one. So here are some first light images from some of these telescopes. Just fun astronomy pictures. Everything from star clusters to galaxies to nebula. And then next one, and then some of the satellite pictures, right? And so the satellites stay still in the star streak. So LEO satellites and GEOs. In fact, well, GEOs are easy, right? Just turn off tracking and go. It's simple, right? Even an astronomer couldn't mess that up.
You'd be surprised.
I'd be surprised. I spoke too soon. All right, next one. So here's kind of our new dome in pictures, and this was quite a project. So this was 3 years ago near spring break, and it's Ash Dome. So they sent 2 of their engineers to come out. They built this platform and built the new dome right on the platform. And I think total weight about, the number that sticks in my mind is about 3 tons worth of dome. So it's heavy. And so they built it, next one, and then they brought the doors over in sections, next picture, and they'd attach them, and the next one, they'd lift it up with a forklift, right, crank it down into place, and then repeat for the next section, and then attach the sections together. So that's the way they put the door sections on. So next one, and then I like this picture. This was the morning that we switched domes. We had to be out there before sunrise to get going. And it was actually lighter out than this picture makes it look like. But I kind of like the way it turned out, right? So new dome in the foreground and the old girl that's about to go on her way, still on the observatory. So next one, so roll this big crane down between our walkway lights. And that was quite a thing. They were for sure that they were going to crack the cement on the walkway, and they didn't with this great big crane with over 40,000 pounds of counterweights on it. And so I think that says, you know, back in the 90s when the sidewalk was constructed, they still knew how to pour concrete, right? These days, I'm not so sure. And so next one, the thing they had a devil of a time with is at the top of our walkway, there's kind of a crown, and their truck kept bottoming out, right? They couldn't get past it. So they eventually had to take all the counterweights off the crane itself and then use these wooden discs. I don't know, maybe there's a better name for those things, but they had to place them and then just roll the tires over them to try and get some clearance on the walkway. So next one, that process took about an hour and a half because they found, all right, we got to take all the counterweights off the crane, put it on the supply truck, and then get the crane down empty. But then the supply truck kept bottoming out. Right? And there was no plan C, because where are you going to put the counterweights if not on the supply truck? So it just took forever. But it was such a process, right? So this is them taking the counterweights off the supply truck, putting it onto the crane, next one, and then they rotate this back end around, and just this plate right here, 2,500 pounds. Just that one plate. Next one, they'd rotate around, and then these great metal posts with horizontal pegs on them, they just lower it down into the set of weights, lock it into place, and just lift the whole thing up like it's nothing. So here, and the next one, and just up. And so we're looking at a total of, when they put the end pieces on, of over 40,000 pounds of counterweight. So it's just impressive to watch. Next one. So then they just hooked on to the existing dome, next picture, and just off she came. And underneath, some scaffolding here, and tarps over the telescope. We'd have bent the whole thing way over horizontal just to you know, lower it enough to put the scaffolding and the cover on. Next one. And so they lowered the old dome down. Next one. And then it took hours. And I do mean hours of them working up there. And I don't even know what they did because I wasn't allowed in the building at the time. I didn't have a hard hat or anything like that. And so they had to put all the pegs down, right, that the new dome was going to sit on. They found a long-standing crack in our cinder blocks that would always let the water in, right? And some days we'd go in there and our computer desk would be under about an inch of water. Right, because it was just, and CE tried and couldn't find it, but when they lifted the dome off, they said, aha, there's the root of the crack, and then they sealed it, and we've never had that problem again. So that was a really nice thing. So next one, so after a long time, they lift the new dome into place, and there it sat with them, you know, making sure everything was going to line up perfectly for what felt like forever. In fact, I just went away for, you know, a bathroom break or whatever, and I come back and they're already putting the new dome on. I'm like, crap, you know, and I'm taking pictures as fast as I can. So next one. So like I say, they lowered it, and you can see the pegs. And so they were just lining everything up very, very carefully, and then lowered the thing down. And once they were done with that, next one, they took the old dome, which was off on the side. Next picture, and you see the cinder blocks. And the next one, they just lowered it onto the platform where they built the original dome, and then just started dismantling this thing. And you're like, oh, why'd you dismantle it? You know? Well, I know, but the weather seals on it were totally shot. I mean, this thing's 40 years old. So it really was not serviceable anymore. In fact, the company Ashstone said, there's no way we could even service this for you anymore. So So not something that we could have donated, unfortunately. So next one, and then there's the finished product, still some scaffolding on it. But kind of cool, like tomorrow, I think, and I don't even know that there was preventive maintenance done on the old dome like there was supposed to be. On this new dome, there is. In fact, our folks at the academy who do all those PM preventive maintenance jobs are coming in tomorrow to look at the dome and grease it and do everything that they need to do periodically. So notice it's still on this one rotated toward the north, but now it's aimed west like it should be, and that's its resting position, because we hadn't even turned the thing yet with the motors. You know, it had just been lowered on. So next one, so that's our observatory in its current state, and we made sure that the dome shutters were wide enough to accommodate the new 1 meter. So that was something that folks said, oh, you've got to do that. Make sure that you get the wide option on the doors. So it's actually the military thinking ahead. Imagine that, right? You could say that you've heard one instance where they did that. But we do a lot of STEM outreach at the observatory. In fact, this is kind of cool. Miss Mississippi, USA, came out for an audience with an astronaut, and as a target of opportunity, one of her STEM outreach platforms is astronomy. So she came out, we had a large group of girls come out to the observatory, gave them all planispheres, showed them how to use them, and her agreement with the young girls was, I will sign your planisphere in my nice gold ink pen if you ask me an astronomy question. So I thought that was really cool. And so since I started at the observatory back in 2007, we've had on average, 10 to 15 tours a year, and maybe 350 at the low end, up to 600 or 700 visitors come in every year. And that's a pittance of what you folks do. I mean, I see your STEM schedule and I'm like, holy cow, right? My jaw drops. So it's pretty darn amazing. And you guys have come out. I remember back in 2007, I think, getting in touch with Jim Ruchis at first and setting up the first tour that you guys would assist us with, go to the next one. And then since then, you guys have come out and done just a ton of tours with us, right? In spite of the cold weather that scout seems to be suffering from. So that's just been a bunch of fun, and Tom and Bob and others coming out to join us. And so that's been a whole lot of fun. Next one, and of course, our friend Jim West, who will never be forgotten. So sure enjoyed having you guys come out and help us with a lot of tours. And I think hopefully that will continue in the future, and maybe we can get some cadets coming out and helping with CSAS events as well. So that's all the things that I'd like to see happen in the future as we go forward with this. So next one, let's talk about a little bit of the research that the cadets and the faculty do out of the observatory to kind of finish things off. So a lot of different areas looking for exoplanets, spectroscopy, variable stars, and one could say, all right, exoplanets is just a subset of variable stars, right? It's just the reason it's varying is not something intrinsic to the star, but intrinsic to that alien solar system. And then astronomical seeing, we have a camera from Santa Barbara Instruments out front that just stares at Polaris and then feeds into some software to give us kind of an estimate of what the astronomical seeing is. Tracking near-Earth objects, that's definitely something that we can do with the Falcon Telescope Network, but we'll also be able to do with the 1 meter, because it will have a fast tracking mount, and you can get, even tracking on the International Space Station as it goes across the sky. The current 61 centimeter scope really isn't set up for that. And then even, so just chance observations of supernovae. So that's kind of a cool thing. So go to the next one. So here's an artist concept of WASP-12 stars about, I believe, 700 or 800 light years distant. And it's a hot Jupiter. So it's a really great target, because as the Jupiter planet moves in front, it just takes a big bite out of the star's light. Next one. And so here's some cadet data back from January of 2011. So the red squares are all of our instrument magnitudes, and then the error bars, and then the blue line is a mathematical fit through the data. And so down on the bottom, it's Julian date, but it's about 5 hours, 5 or 6 hours elapsed time on the x-axis, and then the brightness on the y-axis. And so you can tell that our error bars are just a few millimagnitudes, so not doing too bad. And this is from the 61 centimeter telescope, so observations with it. The only issue is that because that telescope was meant to look at the moon, its F number is very, very large. It's a slow system, like F15.6. So these are, this star is 12th magnitude, and so to get good signal to noise, we needed about 4-minute exposures with that telescope. So doesn't lend itself really to high time resolution imaging, but we tried to push the envelope since then with some higher time resolution stuff. So what we're hoping to continue this trend with the 1 meter telescope, and eventually, hopefully help confirm a new planet and get the cadets to name it or something like that. TESS just launched this last Wednesday, and I was at a conference, the American Astronomical Society in Washington in January, and somebody came up associated with the TESS team in NASA, and of course, they're going to be looking at near-Earth objects, right? Kepler objects are way, way distant, and what TESS is going to be after is stars that, they call them bright stars, but that doesn't mean way up the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. It could be a close by M dwarf and still be, TESS would consider that a bright star. And so they're going to be looking for planets around nearby bright stars, quote unquote. And the TESS folks have asked us at the Air Force Academy to be some of their follow-up ground observing team members. And I've talked to Matt Russell about that. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go. So the 1 meter can't get here soon enough. But even before it gets here, I think the Falcon Telescope Network and CSAS telescopes that some of you have could certainly be used in this effort. So I'm looking forward to those kind of research collaborations in the future. So next one, and so spectroscopy. So we have a high resolution spectrograph. It feeds fiber optically up to the 61 centimeter. And so not a really high powered spectrograph, but one that we've kind of cut our teeth on. And so to give you, for instance, next one, here's a spectrum of Vega, right? And so all the different orders with the central wavelength and angstroms. Nobody uses angstroms anymore, right? I did when I was in school. Nanometers was like, what? What's a nanometer? And so go to the next one. There's Balmer Alpha, the hydrogen alpha line that a lot of you observed the sun in. And next one, and then another close-up of that, right? So about 656.2 nanometers, if I'm remembering that number right. But I just got contacted from these folks, and they're in France, right? Macron is here, so, we'll use a French spectrograph. And so they contacted me, and I'm thinking, yeah, they found out about our 1 meter acquisition somehow, because they said, we have a new line of spectrographs tailored for 1 meter telescopes. Would you be interested? and so, and this one, the spectrograph itself, the diffraction grating is literally inside a black box, but it's not very big. The new one they have takes up most of your front row of tables. Right, and so it's a high-powered instrument, about $100,000 or something like that, right? So I'm saying it with a contracting officer right here, trying to get in good already, and he's like, no, I can't. I don't provide you money. I just spend it once you get it. So you got to go out and get the money first. But spectroscopy is certainly an area that we want to pursue. And so I think this is going to open up a lot of research avenues for the faculty and cadets. Next one. So then variable star photometry, which again is really a superset of the exoplanets. So this is just binary stars, one going in front of the other, right? They're orbiting their common center. And so when the bright star gets eclipsed, you get a deeper well than when the dimmer star gets eclipsed or transits. And so, you know, but not bad in terms of the error budget, right? The error bars are so small on this scale, you don't even see them. So that's another capability that we have out at the observatory. All right, so next one, here's our seeing monitor, right? It's a shutterless CCD camera. So when it reads out a picture, right, it just gives you a column of light from Polaris, and that column will vary in width depending on how turbulent the atmosphere is, and the software converts those wiggles into a seeing measure. And on a good night, right, so here's full width half maximum in arc seconds, so 1/3600th of a degree. And we've never had this absolutely calibrated, so we just use it on a relative scale. This is kind of a so-so night, right? We're down less than 1.5 arc seconds and then up to more than 2.5. On really good nights, we'll just hover here all night long. So even in the lee of the Rockies, not too bad in terms of seeing. And you might say, well, putting a 1 meter right there, is that really the best idea? But the bottom line for us is that's where the cadets are. And that's our main mission. So that's what drives where our telescope is going, more so than just, is this the ideal location for an observatory, right? And you've all heard, I bet, about the Pikes Peak Observatory that's in the works. And I don't know, we took a look at some of the meteorological data, and I don't know how many months out of the year that would actually get used. So it'd be interesting to see where that project goes. So next one. So another thing that we do is satellite or hazardous near Earth object tracking. So back in, and let's see, is this running? Because it was running for us before. Yeah. Let's see if we get something. There we go. And so this is 2005 YU-55. Anybody remember that one? So it passed with it. It's about 350 meters across, passed inside Moon's orbit back in November of 2011. And so we were able to track it across. And this is an unprocessed image, right? You notice the hot columns of pixels and all of that, because it actually gave better contrast than when I processed it later. We were looking so close to the moon's look direction that we were getting a lot of stray light and even bouncing off the inside of the tube. And so what you're seeing here, I believe, are the out of focus dust specks on the filter that we were using. Because, you know, scouts and whatnot see that and it's like, that's the moon! And I'm like, no, sorry, it's not. So just kind of an interesting capability that we've explored. The other thing that we've done is cadets in their senior projects have tracked asteroids in the really deep solar system out crossing Neptune's orbit, so called the trans-Neptunian objects. And with a liquid nitrogen cooled CCD camera and a 10-minute exposure, we were able to successfully identify and track 18th magnitude asteroids with this 61 centimeter telescope. So that was a really cool kind of pressing the envelope of the telescope's capabilities. All right, next one. And then here's the Pinwheel Galaxy. And there was a supernova back in August, I think, of 2011. And so the cadet said, hey, I read about this. Can we try and take a picture of it? So we said, sure, why not, right? And so supernova is there. And very, very bright. We even dabbled a little bit in doing some photometry measurements as the days passed by. Nothing really official, you know, not like graduate research. But it's certainly a capability I'd like to explore further when we get to 1 meter. So next one. And then finally, to wrap up, the cadets just love taking color astrophotos, right? And so this is with our 16-inch telescope. So just dumbbell nebula, 3 30-second exposures, red, green, and blue, put it through CCD soft, and out you get this. And so they're like, wow, that's awesome, right? But that's still nothing in comparison to what Matt and others in the club do. I mean, I've seen his astro photos and I'm like, NASA did this, right? And he's like, no, I provided it to NASA. And I'm like, all right, I am humbled. And so Matt was telling me, he said, you know, there's so much post-processing that goes on that's not involved in what the cadets have done, right? This is just the raw stuff. That he said, there's not really, Matt told me, last weekend, there's not really any science you could do with this anymore, right? It's a pretty picture. And I said, well, that reminds me of food magazines, right? That's not food you could eat. It just looks good, right? And so a post-processed astronomy image, though, like the kind you see on Astronomy Picture of the Day, those things are just awesome. So next one, and so Great Nebula taken with the 16-inch, and the Flame Nebula up here, I believe. And so that was kind of a cool picture we took. Next one, so the Horsehead, and then also with the 16-inch, and then what do we have after the Crab? This was taken with the 61-centimeter. And so this was like, oh, I don't know, 10-minute exposures overlaid. And then next one, the Eagle Nebula, and next one, this is the last one, I think. So Comet Holmes. Did anybody take pictures of that back in 07 when it came through? In fact, this is just the neatest story, right? It was supposed to be like 17th magnitude or something, right? And then a gas pocket exploded inside the comet, and the brightness went up 500,000 times. So you could see it. It just marched across Perseus, just day after day and week after week. I'd be out the hot tub. Yep, there it is. And it was so incredible because the coma, the tail behind the thing, got bigger around than the sun, is what I understand. So it was really a spectacular thing. And we got out there and you know, I looked through it in the finder scope. I never looked at a comet like this before. And I looked through the finder scope and I'm like, what's all that haze? And I'm like, no, that's a comet. So that was a fun thing. And we had the astronomy class get out and take pictures of it. And it was a lot of fun for the students. So if they had that much fun with a telescope built in '64, imagine what they're going to have with a telescope built in 2018. So I am really looking forward to that. I think that, yeah, that does it. So if everybody's ready, right, shield your eyes and lights are coming back on. Well, that wasn't so bad, right? It could have been worse. But it certainly is my pleasure to come and talk to you about our observatory and to kind of whet your appetite for all the fun that's coming in the next few years. So I think this is going to be a really great collaboration. And another thing that I will point out, right, back when the planetarium was in operation, and they're renovating it right now. They have enough money to renovate all of the structure of the building, the plumbing, the heating, the electrical, all of those things. I understand, though, they're still short on the money for the digital projection equipment, right? So that's something that there's donors out there with too much money to you know, a lot more than we'll ever have that are going to help with that project. And so when the planetarium used to be open, and this was before 9/11 and before the cadet area fence was constructed, so the general public could get right up to the planetarium, go inside before sundown, see what's going to be visible that night, and then drive over to the observatory and actually see it. So even with the cadet area fence in place, that's something that I want to rejuvenate. So I have the idea, maybe a crazy one, of, hey, you know, if they can open up the academy on off-duty hours, off-visitor hours for athletic events, they can certainly do it for astronomy and science. At least that's my argument. And so so I want to get like a visitor cordon opened up. Folks can get up to the planetarium, see what's going to be visible that night, and then we bus them through the cadet area security over to the observatory. We have an open house for however many folks come, and then you get bussed back to your cars at the planetarium. So I am really looking forward and hopeful to that kind of future for STEM outreach in the academy. So that's kind of my goal and the long and short of the observatory, and I welcome any questions anybody might have. Yes, sir.
A little bit of a story behind
Yeah.
the question. I previously in the Navy for 6 years, and I come out to Colorado Springs and got hired with ITT and did a depot maintenance for telescopes, GEOT program. I don't know if
Right.
Anybody knows about GEOT?
Yeah.
So I went to White Sands, New Mexico,
Mhm.
Maui, Haleakala, and the British Indian Ocean Territory, south of India.
Right.
South of
Gotcha.
Diego Garcia.
Diego Garcia, thank you.
South end of the island past the Donkey Gate.
Yes.
Site manager for 5.5 years.
Oh my,
Okay.
there we are.
So I had a lot of fun doing that. Did
Right.
that for 4 years. It was a lot of good work. And then the funny thing is, working for the Air Force or thing of the Air Force, I was in the Navy and they brought us in because the Navy guys were good techs. They brought us in because,
Sure,
hey, I had to put that out.
that's all good.
One of my questions is more along, I have a master's degree in IT, so I was just kind of understanding the infrastructure. What does the processing for the telescope?
For the 1 meter or for the Falcons?
Well, what do you have in place right now?
Dave could probably describe the infrastructure for the Falcons better than I could in terms of what kind, the computer architecture. I mean, I've seen the great big complicated spaghetti flowcharts, right? But I know basically if you want to schedule an event, you go onto a website that we have, you type in all the parameters and it puts it into a queue, forwards it down the line to the computers that are on site. And then they command the telescope, of course, with weather considerations taken into account and all those kinds of things. But the user interface is that website, and then everything else is kind of behind the scenes, and the user never sees that. So I don't know if there's anything that you would add to that, Dave.
That is the long-term goal. Right now, we do a lot of just remote login to them and commanding them. But it is, the long-term goal is to have a Linux box basically run the scripts, do the collects, some weather from, collect the images, they're available locally for local there. Long-term, we have a cadet operations center that we're moving down to La Junta for easier access. And it'll be off the network to make that easier. But that's the kind of long-term goal.
And then the new telescope, as a node on that network, will have the same kind of architecture. But I was interested in what you said about cadet operations down in La Junta. How's that going to work?
Well, since it's just server-based, the web page basically will move hosting.
All right, hosting will move there, but all operations still from here.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, the cadet ops center will still stay in.
That's saying, lots of cadets going TDY to La Junta. That's what I was wondering.
The actual server.
Got it.
Miter's been administrating.
What, Miter, what now?
Miter's been doing the administration on it, so
Okay.
we're taking over. Yeah, we're actually going to host it down at La Junta. They have a
So
base.
will these be servers that are operated by Otero Junior College? Or how's that? No, okay, they'll be
No,
independent of that.
Yeah, like if it goes down, we'll call them up and they can reboot it.
Right.
But we're going to actually do the admin for the servers. But that'll be the central location for all of the data. So everything will eventually be piped back to a central location.
Yeah.
Have a repository there. Everybody in the academic agreements will have access to all the data that anybody collects on the network.
And I'm sure I'm going to be learning a lot more about that as the 1 meter comes online.
I'm starting to learn more about it too.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is astronomy its own major at the academy, or what?
It is not. It's a concentration within the physics major. But what we find is at least a third of our physics major. So you have all the core classes you have to take, right? The central classes, mechanics, electricity and magnetism, that all the physics majors take. And then there's room for you to have 3 courses which focus on your major, right? Or focus on an area that you're interested in, not focus on your major, but on an area of interest. And at least a third of our physics majors every year choose astronomy and get involved out there at the observatory. And then the folks who help us with STEM outreach, they don't need to be technical majors at all, right? Everything from history to English to management come out because they like astronomy and they like public outreach, and they get involved with us with the tours. And what I'm hoping to have with this new 1 meter is to expand things to, kind of a USAFA Cadet Exoplanet Hunters Club, right? And I think that's going to just, the roof is going to come off there. So I'm really excited about that, but there is no astronomy major. In fact, that's kind of interesting. That's exactly why I went into space weather in the Air Force as an Air Force officer, because that was the closest I could get to deep space astronomy. So in my active duty career, ionospheres, energy from the sun, all those kinds of things, I still teach that subject at the Air Force Academy, and I taught it at the graduate level at the Air Force's graduate school my last 6 years on active duty, then came to the academy and had no idea they even had an observatory, right? And I hadn't done astronomy. The last time I'd been in an astronomy class, CCDs for astronomy weren't even a thing yet. Talk about feeling old. And so then a couple years later, the acting director of the observatory, changed duty stations, and I raised my hand and said, hey, I'll do this, right? So I've been out of astronomy since 1985. I had to literally reteach myself the entire subject. I'd never even taken a CCD image before, right? And so I figured I've got to learn all this stuff so I can teach the cadets. And I use that kind of as a teaching moment for them. Somebody once told me when I was an undergrad, they said, Devin, do you know the purpose of getting an undergraduate degree? I said, well, Alan, no, I really don't. He said, it's to learn how to teach yourself, because for the rest of your life, that's what you're going to be doing, is teaching yourself. And so I tell the cadets, I'm case in point, because I had to relearn the subject of astronomy in the modern world, the modern CCD world, so then I could turn around and teach you, and someday you're going to be in the same position. So I love using that, and they don't understand it at age 18 or 19, but they will. And now you understand it, and you're not even 18 or 19 yet, right? So remember, take school seriously, because it's gonna serve you the rest of your life. Take as much math and science as you can stomach. That's my advice. Yeah, but so I would have been an astronomer in the Air Force if they'd let me, but they don't have that career field, right? We're a couple hundred years shy of that, but someday maybe there will be an astronomy career field in the Air Force. But we still find lots of ways to insert it into the curriculum, hence the need for our observatory. So that's the good news. Anything else? Yes, sir.
The work you do with Space Surveillance Network and gathering the satellite data, do you feed into SATCAT?
No. We don't have any operational mission at all. It's kind of test and development and research is the way I'd call it. Maybe there's a better way to phrase it.
We do have some research on SSA. That's mainly where I've been focused. I'm just now getting involved with the FTN, Rocket Telescope Network. So my knowledge of what we do with the FTN is fairly small. I've been doing more projects with spectroscopy on the SSA, looking at satellites. What can we do with the multispectral
and
data.
polarimetry, maybe?
Yeah, and my main interest area is in polarimetry. So that's more kind of my interest is the SSA with tracking the satellites. A lot of the agreements we have with the universities, they're more interested in the astronomy side of it. So, but there's no, right now we don't have any way to feed observations.
Yeah, so if you tried to connect the FTN to an Air Force network, the security concerns would just boggle the mind.
But what you're doing is you're not necessarily training astronomers, you are training people to operate in the space surveillance realm for the 13th Sierra.
Yeah, I would say
group.
yes, and for the 6-1s, the physicists,
Yes.
right? So the way I like to generalize it, to me, it's the space science umbrella.
Yes.
We're training space scientists, and there's a lot of stuff under that umbrella.
Big need for it since they purged them back in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah. So the cadets enjoy it. I'm obviously bored to tears with it, as you can tell. And so I'm hoping to keep doing this for a long, long time. Anything else? Yes, sir.
You briefly mentioned about problems with the sodium light in
Yes.
Colorado Springs. Have you approached Colorado Springs about that, and has that
gotten anywhere?
I approached them just to say, because the transition to LEDs is happening, right? So I said, tell me what fraction of your lights are still high pressure sodium, because I wanted to see, all right, is that a viable option for this? And they said over 90% are still high pressure sodium of their 26,000 lights or whatever the number is. And it's interesting, the way we verified it, right? We just bought a high pressure sodium work light, put it outside the 16-inch, dome room, left the door open a crack because it's a work light. So the light is so bright, it just saturates the sensor in no time, right? So you've really got to cut down the intensity of the light, and made a flat with that, and boom, out pops the same pattern that we got in the star image. And I'm like, and then the other thing is, sodium, right? You've got those green lines at 590 something nanometers. And we said, well, that can't be the cause, because we're seeing this in the infrared. So it's funny, right? We don't see it in blue. We don't see it in visible. We don't even see it in red. We see it in infrared. And another, anybody ever heard of the Astrodon clear blue blocking exoplanet filter, 500 nanometers and longer? So we see it in that filter as well. So we took our work light down to our laser lab, put a spectrograph on it, looked at the emission spectrum, and at about 820 nanometers, boom, there's a spike. And we're like, that's our culprit, right? So that's how we kind of verified that it is the high pressure sodium. Now the big question is, what do you do about it, right? And one idea that's kind of interesting. So you pan around the telescope so that the stars do like a random walk. And this was something, anybody ever used a program called Mira Pro? It's a program to do astronomical image processing. And so the inventor of that code said, all right, random walk your stars around and then do a median combine of all your images. And the stars will mostly just wipe out, because then they never occupy the same set of pixels. And then that makes a template of the interference pattern for you that hopefully is scaled right in amplitude. And then you just subtract that away, right? Like you would a dark. And we've tried that. We've had some level of success, but we're still not real happy. So now we have to figure out what's the next step. But that's been a real fun project for the cadets. Yeah, but so I don't know that the city would do much about it. And the funny thing is, for front illuminated CCDs, thick CCDs, this is not really an issue. It's an issue for the thin ones, right? The more expensive ones. But it's something that we're definitely going to have to cope with into the future. And I don't know what their transition plan is from high pressure sodium to LED, but we'll have to wait and see, right? So I was talking just with the city folks who know what the stats are on the lights, but not the issue of the pollution and what to do about it. Yeah. Anything else? Sir?
Do you have any aerospace majors? That
Yes. Yes, we do. In fact, we have a whole aerospace lab with a big wind tunnel and everything, and you figure it's the Air Force. We'd better have an aerospace studies major. If we don't, we've missed the boat somewhere, man. So aero engineering, astro engineering, building satellites and flying them, all kinds of majors like that.
But do they contribute to the observatory?
Not really. The astrodynamics department, we're hoping, will. The aeronautics department, they just live too close to the skin of the onion, right, in terms of our atmosphere. But we are hoping to get collaborations with the astrodynamics department in the future. So that's definitely coming, I hope. Yeah. We're probably about out of time, aren't we? Yeah, I see the hook coming, right?
Hey, Matt.
No, if there's any more questions for Devin, can you please ask them on break?
Sure.
I'm sure he'll be around.
Sure.
But Devin, we would like to thank you for doing your presentation today.
Thank you for your time.
All right, well, moving on. on real quick here. Sorry I was late. I had an issue of a lost dog in a snowstorm up in Black Forest. That's been resolved. So,
In a good way.
in a good way. So,
I don't have those left for.
anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to some of the committee reports real quickly here before our break. The first report that we're going to do is Jason is going to be doing a quick treasurer's report. We've moved that treasurer's report for about once every quarter. So Jason, go for it.
Anyway, starting balance for us was $26,384. Ending balance, $30,000. I guess that's the current balance, $30,875. Transactions of note that were outside the January 1st approved budget. $200 donation for AV equipment. That was greatly appreciated. One new lifetime member, Howard Furman. Yeah, there's a relation there. $200, actually it was technically $220, was spent towards getting grid electricity at Starry Meadows. That's just to start the process officially so that we can find out how much it really will cost. I'm meeting, I'll get to that afterwards. Let's see, a bill for the 2017 RMSS pins missed getting paid in 2017. Bill of $677, I believe that's what it was paid. And the board voted to add a 2017 PIN payment to miscellaneous expenses. Board voted to add $500 to RMSS budget for swag for the 2018 RMSS.
Woohoo, swag.
Swag. A new estimated profit for 2018 is about $7,000. Highly dependent on RMSS enrollment, but for what it's worth, we're on track. Should I just go into the other one? It's really brief. So regarding the land committee stuff, I'm going to be meeting with, gosh, it got delayed again, an engineer from San Isabel regarding the grid access on was Thursday. Now it's Monday. Next Monday coming up. Let's see, and we have a committee meeting at 9 a.m. this Saturday for those who are interested in it. It's Panera Bread, and it's going to be, let's see, primary discussing our land use policy that we're trying to develop. If you want to say in it, that's the one to be at.
Just show up with any Panera Bread.
Actually, any Panera Bread's good. The information is on the website, but it's Powers and
It's right by the Best Buy on Powers.
Yeah.
It's a new center point there.
And discussing the status of the observatory that we currently have in development at Starry Meadows.
So we're doing it this Saturday.
That's this Saturday, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the calendar.
Yeah, that's what it says on the calendar. So
You put it on the calendar, Tom.
Adjusted to today.
It was adjusted.
I thought it was adjusted to that date.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was the weekend after this, right?
So folks, this, what I want to make sure that everybody knows is if you are interested in, especially in this usage policy for Starry Meadows, please go to this meeting. Your input is very important, and we want to come up with options that are fair for everybody. So please, if you can make it, make it. Next is Rocky Mountain Star Stair.
So, I'm not leaving. Couple notes here. As everyone, if you're regular attendees here, the Rocky Mountain, we have newbies here too. So Rocky Mountain Star Stair is RMSS. That's our big June annual star party. It goes on from Wednesday through Saturday down on our property near Gardner, Colorado. I'm the director this year. So everything is coming along just fine. We have our speakers lined up, the vendors are lined up. Our programs are pretty much all in place. As you know, we're gonna have a food truck on site. As of the start of this meeting, we have 141 people registered. So I'm hoping that's maybe about half of the total that will register. So we are shooting for, I think last year we did 260. I'd like to see that go up a little higher. I was down on site yesterday, and you have those images. So I thought I'd show you a couple of pictures here. We have a work weekend coming up, and we'll talk about that on the schedule. So this is the road going in, and that's that hill. It used to go up. There was 2 narrow rutted roads, and so go to the next picture. So that's what it looks like now. Go to the next picture.
Cool.
That's how it looks these days. It's vastly improved. Anyone pulling a trailer or going up in an RV, this is a good thing. Just wanted you to see that.
Oh, you got bugs on your windshield.
Yeah, the bugs are back.
And where's the soundtrack?
And so this is where it splits out again, back to the interstate. Those numbers there. I have a head-up display. On my new car. Next. We have some work to do, and we'll be talking about that. I noticed this. That's not the way it's supposed to be. That was like flopping, and the whole darn gutter was got loose again. That's on the south side. Picture. That's just kind of what it looks like. That's what the new observatory. That's where it's currently at. I know that plans are to go down there pretty quick and get the walls up in the dome on. We'll be going down there also to do some mowing next. And just a couple more shots of what the property looks like. It's dry as a bone. It hasn't greened up yet. We need moisture badly. I'll just say that. I think that's it, right? Oh, lost and found. There's some stuff down there. Anybody recognize that?
It's a hat.
It's a hat. It's not mine. Next. Somebody's glasses. Next. Someone's Denali National Park, Mount McKinley hat. Next. An REI. And lastly, a stainless steel cup. And that's it. Anybody got any questions about RMSS? So, by the way, the meeting is Saturday at Panera Bread. We're talking both. It's a combined RMSS, but RMSS people that are helping me along with the land committee.
And you made a good point. You started to mention, just as a heads up, if you aren't thinking about it, the following month we're going to have a Starry Meadows work meeting, work day.
A work day.
We do a lot of stuff. So,
right.
More hands.
Yes.
For anyone that's planning to go down to the work session, is there anything that we should bring, gloves or tools or anything?
Definitely gloves.
Bug spray.
Yeah, you want a hat, so maybe, we're gonna be providing lunch. We'll do a barbecue, throw some burgers and brats on the grill, do some things like that. So we'll break for an hour and have that. We'll have stuff to drink. Like soda and water, because you will get dehydrated if you don't drink it. Work gloves, a good idea. Boots, just kind of dress because we'll be using chainsaws and mowing.
Slash removal,
yeah, things like that. Yeah.
So, all right. We also have a special interest group for folks who are interested in astrophotography. I see Brian Gibson is back in the back. I want to give a quick update on things. What's next?
Hi, my name's Brian Gibson, and I post at my home 1 week from tonight. It's always usually the week following this meeting. And after imaging subgroup meeting, this coming week where a discussion is going to be on guiding. Some interesting things about it. Actually, probably we're trying to accomplish maybe 3 things. One is basic information about what some of your options are, how to do it, things like that. But also a little subsection for those who are interested maybe in trying it that haven't done so. A section I guess I will refer to as trying to do guiding on the cheap. So that best I saw, I just can't believe the guy did this. He was able to do that, but it shows that there's quite a range that you have. Lastly, we'll try to set up a scenario where we can actually go out at the last part of the night if the stars are bright enough and actually have you try it and see what it's like to actually set it up. And then how does it improve what you're doing when you need it, when is it not necessary? So guiding next week, 6:30, 8:30. If you are interested, please, and you haven't, I don't have your email, give me your email and I'll put you on the contact list and send you further information out a day or two before the event. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, hopefully next month, we will also have another committee form, perhaps called the Long-Term Planning Committee for CSAS, which will be addressing issues of our long-term Colorado Springs goals, as well as the Air Force Academy telescope placement. So if you are interested in that committee, please see me at the break. I know that there was 4 or 5 of you that came up last month, but we're now ready to get going on that committee. So if you would please see me at the break. So as of right now, we will come back at 19:50, which is about 9 minutes. I do need to see Dave Warner and Bruce at the break. One question before I forget it is, for those of you who were here last month, you noticed that we kind of switched the schedule around, where we're doing speakers first, and then the kind of more business side of things after the break. What do you guys think about that? Do you like that format better? Yeah. Hands, please. So I can see. Okay, I think that's good enough. We'll keep with that format then. We've had that suggestion in the past, so we'll just continue. Other than that, I think that, Walter Warren right here has name tags for folks that need a name tag. If you don't have one and you need one, talk to him. Otherwise, you might have a name tag here.
If you signed up for one.
If you signed up for one. And secondly, if there are any visitors here that have not filled out a little visitor card, we would appreciate it if you would do that back there in the back, right? And then I see another one up here in the front. So we'll come back in about 8 or 9 minutes. Okay, real quickly here, one thing I forgot to mention before the break is Alan Gorski is sick today. He is going to be, he's still getting together that jacket order. There has been a change request basically to say, instead of CSAS, Dave, you want to turn around? Instead of saying CSAS on the back, to say CS Astro. He's having some problems getting it to fit right because of the extra lettering without making it really small. So he's still trying to get quotes back on what that would cost to get those setup fees and whatever else. So we just got to be a little bit more patient on that.
Change the logo, we have to get a new jacket now, right?
Well, we don't have to.
That's a good idea.
There's been a request to change it to CS Astro. Next up, I noticed that we have some forest and fossil bed folks here today. We have Stu, am I right? Stu, Steve, Michelle, is that right? Okay, perfect. Michelle's going to come up and spend about 10 minutes telling you a little bit about the fossil beds and some cool things that they're doing up that way.
So it's Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I have to say, what a hard act to follow. What a great presentation. So I wanted to, can we dim the lights? I think good. So how many of you had the opportunity to come up to Florist and Fossil Beds? So great.
Yeah, ask the question in the dark.
Yeah. I can see the hands up. So it looks like all of you have been there, and I hope you frequent it often. But one of our most famous features we have there are these beautiful petrified stumps that we think most likely they are the largest in the world. Don't know that for sure, but we believe that's the case. But you all know where it is right now. We're one of many national park sites in the state of Colorado, and on a larger scale, we're part of what's called the Gold Belt Scenic Byway, and we're the northern tip of that. And we help to promote tourism along that Gold Belt Byway, going all the way down to Florence from Kansas City and then back up. And the map down at the bottom, I don't know if this has yes, it does. What that orange color is showing our ancient lake bed of that, and we manage just under 6,000 acres. And this is a little bit outdated because we're the federal government and we're a little bit behind, so we don't have our report quite for public viewing yet for 2017. But our economic impact to the local economy, regional economy, is about, this year probably be closer to about $4.5 million, and we're really proud of that. We try to hire local contractors. We try to work within the region when we have projects and help to support 65 jobs in the local community. What we're most famous for, the purpose is set aside to preserve and protect insect and leaf fossils of the Florissant Formation related to paleontological, geological, scientific resources, scenic resources, thus providing for scientific research, interpretation, and leading public understanding and stewardship of the significant resources. And we have some of the richest insect and plant fossils from the Eocene time frame in the world. And we're really proud of it. And they're very well preserved, as you can see. And they're very, very unique. We have researchers from all over the world that study the fossils and have learned quite a bit about the Earth's history as a result of that time. And some of the things that we do for the public, we have a lot of different types of programs we offer. And this is how we're going to talk a little bit more about our collaboration real quickly here. But we provide interpretation education programs for almost 10,000 people every year. Our education program from throughout the Pikes Peak region, all the way from Monument down to Pueblo, Colorado, we have close to 5,000 students that come in the spring and fall for environmental education programs at the park. We're really proud of the intern program. We are working, since 1992, we've had over 65 interns that have worked at the fossil beds, gone on to become geologists, paleontologists, and different scientists in the academic world. And they've started their careers, a lot of them at Florissant Fossil Beds. And a lot of the money that we get for these interns, we write grants, and they're able to come and study and do research here right in this area. And beyond boundaries or borders, if you will, we also do research with partners around the world. And so there's some other fossil sites we have one site that we partner with in Peru and Thailand that have petrified trees in those locations. And we have different issues that we're working at in these different sites to preserve these fossil resources. And some of them have to do with humidity, weather and erosion, and how do we actually protect these petrified stumps, if you will, or trees. And up at the fossil beds, we have some of those issues too with weathering and erosion. We have shelters over them, but we're starting to feel through some of the research that our shelters might be causing more accelerated erosion as a result of water and snow buildup down in the pits, and the stumps into the shelter were how they were excavated early as in the 1920s. They used dynamite to excavate them. And as a result of that, we're seeing more erosion in those areas. And they're banned, as those of you that have been up have looked at them, but we're doing a significant research project right now to figure out how we can hold the stumps together. It's quite challenging. So if you want to learn more about that, we can share that apart. But that brings us to why we're here tonight. And this great collaboration began just over 3 years ago when we reached out to you all to see if there was an interest in partnering and helping us to provide stargazing events at fluorescent fossil beds. And this relationship has really grown. And how many of you have volunteered your time and come up and helped to facilitate these programs? We couldn't do this great work without you. And this program that you all started and have made available through this partnership, it is now our most popular special program that we have throughout the year. And as you know, you'll see these crowds. We get close to closing the park for the evening. It looks like we have hardly anyone in the parking lot. And we go from any time throughout the year. We have, in the summer, it's more of our peak time, but we've had, and you guys can help me more on Stu, up to 100 and 150 people. When we had the Blood Moon event what was that, 2 years ago, we had close to 300 people come out for that event. And it's been really unique, and we're grateful for your willingness to share your talents with us. One of our challenges and our opportunities, as you all have seen when you've been up there, we are truly an island. So within, around our boundaries here, the growth that you've seen in Colorado Springs, it's coming up in our area as well. So we have all private land on all sides of us right now. And so some of the things that we're trying to do to help preserve that landscape, we're challenged with this development that's taking place around us. And some of that is with light pollution as well, of how to help our neighbors, that some of the things that they can do to help to protect the night sky as well. But that also brings us why we're here, and we wanted to talk more about why we're interested in becoming an IDA International Dark Sky Park. Nighttime views and environments are among the critical parks features the National Park Service protects. And as some of you know, you can travel around the western part of the United States, and it's become more of a destination to go to some parks that people go specifically to experience the dark sky. So night sky protection enhances qualities of solitude, undeveloped wilderness character that animals depend on to survive, park visitors seek for connections, and many cultural and historical parks require for preservation. Natural night sky is part of our complex ecosystems that support both natural and cultural resources. And nearly half of the species on our Earth, as everyone knows, most likely here, are nocturnal. The absence of light, natural and otherwise, is a key element of their habitat. Many species rely on natural patterns of light, darkness for navigation, nesting, mating, hiding from predators, and cue behaviors. Night skies is a cultural and historic resource. The same dark and starry skies have evolved countless myths, art, literature, and music from cultures around the world, and it's a timeless and boundless resource. And from the economic standpoint, another thing in the area where we are, stargazing activities draw more visitors, as I mentioned earlier, to areas and tend to increase the lengths of stays. And as you've seen throughout, and we've seen throughout the West, a growing number of visitors to parks seek astrotourism opportunities. And that's something that's grown in our area as well. We have a lot more of VRBOs, and some of the local lodge keepers are really boosting when there's stargazing events at the fossil beds. That's something that they try to promote to their those that are staying at those accommodations to come and experience. And this was written back in 1869 by Adam Smith, who was the father of economics and capitalism. Of all the phenomena of nature, the celestial appearances are, by the greatness and beauty, the most universal objects of the curiosity of mankind. And I wanted to do a transition to have Stu talk about, because he's going to be leading the charge for our dark sky designation. So just to share a few things. It's just on the right. Whoops. Oh, you already jumped to it.
Actually, I think. Okay. We've got to go back and forth a couple of times. So what we have in common really is an interest in dark skies. The National Park Service has come to the realization that half of our world is at night, and what an incredible opportunity to take advantage of a big dark spot. We've got 6,000 acres with not a single light turned on at night. That's a pretty good, hole in the world of light. And we are incredibly fortunate that we have Pikes Peak and Rampart Range. And so the metropolitan area is very well shielded for us. That gives us an opportunity to pursue designation as an International Dark Sky Association Dark Sky Park. And probably one of the most important qualities that we have is that this is a dark place where we can partner with you folks to give access to night skies to a major metropolitan area. Most of the dark sky parks are in remote locations. You have to be on vacation. You have to make a plan to go there. Michelle showed me a brand new one that was just created last week or 2 weeks ago. You can only get there by boat or by walking, not ready access. So we think it's an incredible asset to have a dark sky park that is simply immediately available to a major metropolitan area. We think that's kind of a distinguishing quality. And we wouldn't be able to pursue this or do this without your partnership. All the folks I've met that have come out and helped us have just been phenomenal. And our visitors, are just, some people are coming back every month and every month because they have quickly gained that addiction of enjoying the night sky. So in order to achieve dark sky park status, we have, it's almost a government agency. We have a whole bunch of hoops to jump through. One of which is we have to measure how dark the sky is on dark nights. And Bruce has purchased and set up the requisite light meter and equipment where probably on star nights, we'll be taking measurements at several locations. Initial survey says we're probably going to be a silver sky quality. That's great. We're borderline on gold, which is the best. But in order to get there, we have to take a number of light readings at a number of locations. And then we have this whole other list of things. And that's another reason for visiting with you, because as I've met folks here, it's just been amazing the diversity of skills that you all bring. You all have a common interest in astronomy and the night sky, but the rest of your lives are involved in this, plethora of skills that would be just awesome to help out, whether it's mapping or writing documents, or maybe somebody has got some really great graphic skills. We need to put together a huge application packet. We need to document a whole bunch of stuff. We need to prepare maps. It needs to be all packaged and displayed in an attractive manner. And so, a short list of the skills and jobs to be accomplished are shown here. So not only are we here to say thank you for all you do, we're here to recruit and say, wow, here's this great talent pool. We'd sure love to work with more of you to try to accomplish all those things. Once we obtain this International Dark Sky Park designation, we think that's a real benefit to all of us. It helps, the economy of the region. Maybe some of you even are involved with businesses that would benefit. Certainly your interests in astronomy are furthered. We hope to be able to offer information to our neighbors to try to work on better light control, reduce light pollution. I happen to be a retired police chief, and so know something about, wow, I can help you light your property at night in a way to deter crime that doesn't blind the astronomer down the road. And so there are win-win opportunities. So outreach, say computer skills, graphics, graphic design, someone who's more talented than I in writing letters, please get a hold of us, pester Bruce. We would love to put even more of you to work. So we thank you very much for listening to us, and hope to see a lot more of you. Yes, sir.
Yes, Stu, I had a question in regards to, have you put any thought yet into having a place that astronomers could go up and set up their telescopes, besides what we do at the visitor center, of course, but having a place that astronomers could come up into the property with their telescopes and do that?
So we have talked a little bit about that, and that possibility is there. One of our challenges is that we are a day use park, so I mean we open or we extend our hours just for the programs, but it is doable. There's some locations that we've had some conversations about, but we don't have anything formalized yet.
And of course, having an interest and having people willing to participate and work with the superintendent to find out how to make it happen, things become possible. So really appreciate the opportunity. And again, we want to say thanks to all of you that come up. We know that our visitors who come up and participate just absolutely enjoy it. I'm really starting to see people come back again and again because they enjoy it so much. So, yes, sir.
One thing to point out is when this effort started, the park is known for its stumps. And Michelle made a very brilliant observation. It may get a new theme when we start this, when we get this effort really going. If you will share it with everyone, because it's wonderful coming from you.
Stumps and stars. Oh, stumps and stars. We had that. We were at a planning meeting. You're like, we need a catchy name.
Yeah.
We put a big giant telescope up there.
The one from the Air Force Academy might just fit. Yes, sir. Our combined outreach through the Dark Sky Park designation and our partnership with CSAS would be to do outreach to the surrounding county governments, to the towns, maybe even as far as Colorado Springs, to try to work on those high pressure sodium vapor lights, because the more we can deal with light pollution, the better off we all are. And, so marketing is an important aspect. Outreach to our neighbors at all levels is important. And again, looking at the diversity of this audience and all the people you touch in your lives, this not just 50 people in the room, you connect with thousands of people. And all of a sudden, that gets to be a big enough movement that elected officials in the various entities that are involved start to say, wow, we should listen, because that's an awful lot of voters out there.
There's quite a few club members who have had experience dealing with local entities on getting those rules changed. From small county communities, I engaged the U.S. Navy and changed an entire military base myself. So we've got the experience here that we could start building some good campaigns.
All right, great.
All right, so get a hold of Bruce, or you can reach me through the park or Michelle, and we'd just love to continue to work with you on an even higher level.
Great. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. Next up, 30 minutes, maybe. Next up is Doug Cook wants to talk real quickly about a really neat trip that he took to Washington, D.C.
All right, thanks, Matt. As astronomy and space enthusiasts, I'm sure many of you are members of the Planetary Society or National Space Society, and you always get emails looking for money. Well, back in December, I got an email from Casey Dreyer from the Planetary Society, and he was soliciting for people not to donate money, but to donate their time and presence in Washington, D.C., to go to the 2018 legislative blitz. They've been doing this for about 10 years. And what it's about is to advocate for space and to try to get a bigger slice of the pie for NASA. And I said, why not? I haven't tried it before. Maybe it'll be a good experience. I was one of 80 participants, and we visited 180 House and Senate offices to go through with our message of more money for NASA. The Space Society, Space Exploration Alliance, has 9 member societies. And not only in 2018, but in next year, the message I'd like to have you take away is anybody can do this. If you're interested, if you'd like to advocate for NASA, anybody can do this. You do an online course, and it's really easy. You learn something about civics and government and the government budget. And you see that in-person visits to these congressional offices have the biggest impact to get a message across. You learn exciting things like the federal budget. We've got about roughly $1 trillion federal budget, and only 1/3 of that is discretionary, and half of that discretionary part is defense. Well, that's a good thing. It supports a lot of things in Colorado Springs. The little piece of the pie that NASA's got is coming out of that 5.3% there, and it's controlled by the House Commerce, Justice, and Science Committee, the Appropriations Committee. And NASA's budget is about $19.6 billion for this fiscal year, 2017. We were lobbying to increase that. The proposed fiscal year 2018 budget, you can get this as a PDF file online. It's a 734-page document, and your favorite NASA program, like the Hubble Space Telescope or whatever, is going to be some line item in that budget. Back in February, we all enjoyed and celebrated the launch of the Falcon Heavy, and a lot of people have been saying, you know, this is going to be the thing that is going to free up money for NASA. It's going to be so much cheaper to do things this way. And in the long run, it may be, but let's not get rid of the Space Launch System, the SLS, yet. It's not going to happen. It's here to stay for a while, and it chews up about 20% of NASA's budget, the SLS and the Orion. And locally here in Colorado, a good piece of the pie is here for Orion. Bad thing about the SLS, the per launch cost is going to be about 10 times the Falcon Heavy. But this is a machine that has a heavier lift capability, and it's stated that this is going to get a crew to Mars. Maybe Elon Musk is going to do it with his much bigger rocket. There are suppliers to the SLS in every state. So now we get into politics. You can't go and lobby to take away the SLS because that's going to hurt different states, especially Alabama. 13,000 jobs and about $2.4 billion goes to Alabama. But we get a piece of the pie here in Colorado. This is something that you learn about in your homework for doing the space advocacy. You learn what's happening in your local area. The United Launch Alliance is in Denver with the Orion Crew Capsule contract. And you drill down a little deeper and look where all the congressional districts have money coming in. Because you're going to go and talk to these congressional offices. You want to know if their bread is buttered by NASA. And you see Colorado District 2 gets about close to $500 million for Orion and various other splits. Our District 5, not so much, about $366,000 comes in from NASA. I know you can't read it from where you are, but you're handed this packet of information to take out to these congressional offices. You have talking points. The very top ones are the things that we hit on. You've got about 15 to 20 minutes to talk to the congressional rep. Our message that we hit them with was we want immediate steps for human missions beyond low Earth orbit and to Mars by the early 2030s. It's not a laughing matter. We're quite serious about that. And to facilitate that, we need to support robotic missions as precursor missions to a manned landing. And we've got an aging MRO satellite orbiting around Mars. It's not only acquiring data on the surface, but it's a communications relay, and that thing needs to be replaced. The Trump administration is pretty space friendly. President signed Space Directive 1, which wants to get us back in the vicinity of Moon and states going to Mars eventually, but without any details, and there's no real budget to go along with it. So that's what we're advocating for. Our big message was give NASA at least an additional $1 billion from what it's getting every year going out, and we can get some things done. To get us to Mars, land a crew on Mars by 2033. That was a message that we drove home. And the entry, descent, and landing stage of a Mars mission is very important to be working on soon. We don't know how to land a vehicle as big as a crew capsule on Mars unless you've got Elon Musk's BFR that might be able to just do it by sheer might. So you arrive in Washington. The day before you go out to Capitol Hill is spent at George Washington University. You get to meet your counterparts, get team assignments, get your package of information. And it's not just adults. We had 7th and 8th graders going out there on Capitol Hill with us. So this is for everybody. If you want to do it, you can do it. The first day out on Monday, we started out at NASA headquarters and had a lecture by an associate administrator of NASA. That's our whole group. And this is Artemis Westenberg, the president of the Explore Mars Society. And in this very spot just yesterday, the new NASA administrator was sworn in by Vice President Pence.
Did you say her first name was Artemis?
Yes.
Wow. Cool.
She followed her name, I guess.
Very cool.
So this is my team. Artemis was on my team. 2 guys here from Colorado. This guy, Travis, and myself, obviously from Colorado Springs. And so that got us our 12 meeting assignment for 2 days. We went to the office of Senator Cory Gardner, Representative Doug Lamborn, and that was a bizarre experience. But that's one end of the spectrum. Senator Michael Bennett and Representative Ed Perlmutter from Colorado 7th District. That was the other end of the spectrum, very space friendly, as well as other Senate and representative offices. So the experience, I'll never forget it, and I highly recommend this as the ultimate outreach activity. Wandering around in the Senate and House office buildings where you normally see the news cameras and these big golden doors, and right after I took this picture, Trey Gowdy walked out. And you recognize faces that are on TV all the time. And here's a friendly office, Ed Perlmutter's office. When you see rockets, you know you're talking to the right people. So after we did the space blitz, just not quite 2 weeks after, NASA had their budget hearing, and the 2018 budget hadn't been finalized, and they're still fighting for the 2018 budget. And here is Robert Lightfoot, the acting administrator at the time, testifying and answering questions that are coming at him from these representatives and senators using our talking points. What are you going to do about this and this and this? He says, well, I'd be happy to do it if I had the budget. So Perlmutter also testified, and he said, we're going to send astronauts to Mars by 2033. And I'm not going to do my Yoda voice, but he said, do or do not, there is no try. So we're out there lobbying for it. And the result was the omnibus bill was passed. We didn't shut the government down, but NASA won. Got over $1 billion for NASA. And the Planetary Science Division is up $400 million. The Europa Clipper and Lander is funded for this fiscal year. Education division of NASA was not cut completely, which they thought it was going to be. Other increases, and the W-FIRST mission was not cut, is being funded for this fiscal year. They have to fight for these things every year. So to sum up, it was a great experience for me. I highly recommend it. There are 80 participants. We hit 180 offices. People like you and me interested in space, even students. And this was our message, 2033, putting men on Mars. We can do this.
Thank you very much, Doug. Awesome. Okay.
How much did it cost you?
A plane ticket and hotel. I don't have the total number, but my wife went with me, so it adds up. Probably a couple grand, maybe.
Vacation.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a vacation.
We're coming up on our stop at 8:30. However, we have received permission from the Space Foundation to stay 5 to 10 minutes extra so that Dave can present what he needs to present.
And of course, I'm gonna talk, right? So we gotta have that. Hey, please go ahead. So I got a couple of things. First of all, I want to say before the Florissant folks left out of here, I gave them a couple of nice Sky Network outreach pins. Because as much as I would have, done it, but they had to get up the hill and deal with snow and everything else like that. So they do as much in the outreach that we do every month as we do as a team. I got these pins. I don't have enough for everybody in the whole club to get them. So basically I go through and I look at who our outstanding performers are. I have more to give out over the course of the year, but I'm going to give out every few months. I'll give out some of these pins. So Bruce, of course, we have Bruce here, and I do want another one of our big performers. Of course, Bruce is helping me out. We did a brewing event, and we did an astro hike at Garden of the Gods. And speaking of an astro hike at Garden of the Gods, another pin I want to give out is Al's pin. Because Al actually, it's surprising that I'm going to give a pin to Al because it's outreach, right? But Al came out. Al hasn't, honestly, just to be, straight up, Al hasn't done a lot of outreach, right, Al? So admittedly, but he came out. He volunteered to come out and do the astro hike and walked with a bunch of people in the dark at Garden of the Gods and didn't get him lost, I don't think. Not too bad anyway. So
we had to go back and find him.
We had to go find him, but he did a great job. We really appreciate it. I also have some more astro hikes coming up, full moon and stuff. So I hope that I can convince you to
Full
maybe
moon
help
and
us
solstice
out.
walk.
So we're going to be scheduling some of those coming up. But those were really popular. They were so popular that we had to turn people away for those. Another person that outstanding performer is Ralph Reed. You want to come up here real quick? I'm not going to walk all the way back here. So Ralph's already probably put in 50 hours this year so far. I haven't gone and added up the numbers, but it's a ton of hours that he's put out there. He's always there, and he's going to be there this week helping me out, at least on one of our events at the schools this week. And then, of course, Doug Cook. Doug Cook has come out to several of our events, dinosaurs, the CSAS and the dinosaur events. He brought his meteorites out there and supported us. Those were so successful that I just got an email today that they want us back again, October 20th, I think it is, and we're going to do another, even 2 more events at the Dinosaur Resource Center. If Caitlin's still online, I've got one for you too, but you got to come get it.
Yeah.
So them and
That one.
them and Jacob Jet, they're on my list to give some of these out as well. And then there's Jeff. Where's Jeff at? So back here in the back, and Jeff's helped me out one day. We came here for to the Space Foundation for their star party, and it was raining and snowing, but that's not to deter us. We came inside, set up a telescope. We talked to the kids about black holes and multiverses and all sorts of stuff that the kids want to talk about. So we had a great time. So let's talk about real quick what we just got done. We had a whole bunch of different events. Space Symposium went really well. I just had a talk all day long with the 6th graders at Horizon Middle School, and that was a great talk, except I learned that they're very interested in black holes. So I have gone that I need to do more research and answering questions about black holes. And the cool thing about doing outreach is when they ask you a question, you don't know the answer. I do this, and my suggestion is go home, go find out the answer, and then now you know that answer. Another question I got asked is, what are white dwarfs? After you have this star dies and it leaves this white dwarf remnant. I didn't know the answer to that, so I went home and I found out that there's no energy source, but they're made of this, and so I learned something. So anyway, so what I got coming up. Tomorrow we're going to be at Horizon Middle School right after school, 4 to 6:30 p.m. We're just going to, these are daytime events in the next 2 ones. So we're going to set up our solar telescopes, look at the sun, if we can find the moon and look at the moon. It looks like it's going to be good weather. So we're catching these kids right after school before they go home. Because if they go home, we lose them and they don't come back to school is what the teachers tell us. So we've done a whole ton of different schools. Another one is Odyssey Elementary STEAM Night. We did that last year. It was Stargazer Ken, who you only see at our star parties. He actually came out and did an outreach with me there at Odyssey. And we, again, just set up our solar telescopes, looked at the sun, and talked to him about the science of observing in space weather and things like that. So going into May, if we can go into, and on the 5th of May, we have the club member star party. That's a star party just for our club members. It's going to be at Falcon Regional Park, which is out by Falcon High School out there out east. So we wanted to get kind of a sort of dark sky, but a little, so a little ways outside of Colorado Springs area. And that'll be 8 to 11 p.m. on that Saturday, May 5th. So hopefully we'll have good weather for that. We're back to Florissant Fossil Beds. You just heard about how great it is up there, and it is great, and we have a good time. We get lots of people, about 100 people come out. So that's on the 11th of May. Then on the 12th of May is just a little event. It's about maybe 15 people. It's a by registration only. You can see that on the calendar. It's books, beers, and CS Astro. The library said, hey, we had a great time with you guys last year. We want to do something. So what they do is they do a monthly kind of a book club where they go and drink beer and talk about the book of the month. And the book of the month for May is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. So they asked us to come and just hang out, no presentation or anything, but just hang out with people and talk about the book. So that'll be kind of interesting, and we'll get a beer out of it. So that's a good thing. And then on the, let's see, we got Ellicott Middle School. That got rescheduled from earlier in the year because of weather, and so we'll do that on the 17th of May. Our public star party at Fox Run on the 18th of May. As you can see, there's that work day that they talked about earlier. And then that's it until our meeting. And then, of course, Garden of the Gods star party will be on the 23rd, which we also did one of those, by the way, on Saturday. Was it Saturday? Astronomy Day during the daytime didn't pan out because of bad weather and everything. Garden of the Gods was disappointing because it only had 2,000 people show up versus the regular 3,000 for Earth Day. So we missed out on all those people, unfortunately, but because we were going to set up our scopes and hand out materials in the rain and the snow. But we did show up at 8:30 to 9:30, basically out there, and we had about 5 people from Pikes Peak Community College students, last minute homework need to get done. So we helped them out, and we had a good time. Actually, the weather wasn't bad. We didn't have a lot to see. We saw the moon and Venus and a star too, but we had a good time anyway with about 30 people there. But now that we're expecting a big crowd as it starts to warm up, the 23rd of May will be our first big one. Lots more coming on. So that's basically what I have for outreach. What we have looking up, we've got Mars opposition on the 9th of May. So we'll start having Mars showing up. Where I was at Broadmoor at the Space Symposium right at the end of the night before we went home, we had Jupiter coming up. So we were looking at Jupiter at the Space Symposium, which is awesome. Let's see, and I didn't have a lot on the what's up, so that's why I didn't do one this month. There's ETA Aquarius is on the 6th of May with about 50 meteors per hour that first weekend of May. And that was pretty much it. And then just so you know what the names of the full moon coming up is the Bird Lays Eggs moon on the 29th of April. And then the 29th of May is the next full moon, and that's the Frog Croaking moon. So I'll be talking more about that next month. So thank you. That's all I had for outreach. I do have Ralph brought these in. Ralph, we got free stuff. If there's like magazine holders for your sky and telescope astronomy magazines, if you need some of those, and there's these bag things from me. Coronado. So if anybody wants any of these, we want them to disappear. So take them. We're all done here. All right. Thank you.
All right, great. Bruce, do you have something? Oh, just want to remind you, part of the outreach, every Monday, KRCC, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Yeah. Looking up. Give Al a listen to. If you are interested in possibly contributing to one of those events, to do a recording, talk to myself or Hal when he ever gets here. And we'll be able to do that. If you want to check out back episodes, you can go to the website here. It's all downloadable as a podcast for any episode going back to the beginning ones. Anybody else? All right, just a couple quick reminders. Land Committee, RMSS Committee meetings this Saturday at the Panera by Best Buy on Powers at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Also, is there any folks here going to the after the meeting? Is anybody else? There is an after the meeting at Village Inn, which is right down the street. And just folks just kind of hang out and eat pie or whatever they do. One other thing, real quickly, regarding RMSS, early registration ends May 7th. Rates go up after that. So make sure you get your registrations in if you haven't done that. The second item regarding RMSS as well is that our new Sky Safari observing list for RMSS is on the online repository of the Sky Safari app. So you can find it there.
The Sky Safari is on sale right now.
It is on sale right now. We also have a set of rules for the observing list, and we're going to be looking at giving certificates out. Yes, we've got observational pages that'll be there. We're going to get the final edits, add that to here so it's downloadable. We'll also have packets on site available for everyone. Okay. Great. Anything else? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming.